Welcome to the space where creators have aligned a positive and intellectual collab of open minds. For sharing and learning from one another, it's a vibe. We do Rosa podcast on the mic. Subscribe, educator spitting bars. I guess you didn't know I'm multifaceted and humble, checking off life goals. The classroom is my comfort zone where I plant and sow seeds of knowledge, compassion, empathy, and hope. Reading is the key to unlocking your potential. Countless benefits, including cognitive and mental. Regardless of the genre, books are highly influential. Go get yours, I'll get mine. Making strides, monumental. Come rock with me and get down to this new jam. With my friends, I had a very simple plan. Educate the masses through books and life lessons. It's the grand slam. I'm out. Welcome to the Reads with Rosa podcast. As you know, I love connecting with educators from all over the world who are inspirational, who are change makers, and impacting the lives of young people in their classrooms on a daily basis. I'm excited to introduce today's guest. It is such an honor to have her here. I've been following her journey for quite a while now. Oh my God, I sound like a stalker. I'm not, but I've been following her journey for quite a while now on Instagram. She's posting all these interesting stories about teacher life. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Ellyse, who is currently teaching in Samoa. Welcome, sis. How are you?
Kia ora, thank you, and thank you so much for having me. I'm good. How are you?
You know, I'm great. You know how it is. I'm good, thank you. Well, I guess, before we go anywhere with this korero, please introduce yourself. Who is Ellyse? Who are you? Where are you from? What are your cultural roots, fam? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for having me. I so appreciate it. Kia ora. My name is Ellyse Dunn. So my middle name is Māori because my dad's mum is Māori. So I come from up north. My iwi is Ngāti Aokiwa. And over the last couple of years, I've been discovering more about my Māori identity because I grew up largely with my mum and my mum's side of the family. And my mum was the first one of 4 children to be born in New Zealand. So my grandparents were from England. And so 3 out of 4 grandparents in total are English. And for a long time, I only thought I was English. And then I kind of really started to as I grew older, got to know my dad more and realized that actually he's really Māori, even though he doesn't claim to be Māori at all. And it made sense because I always felt like, I can't even explain it. I just always knew there was something else in me. And so in my early 20s, I really started to get to know like my whakapapa and stuff like that. And I connected with my dad's brother who is fluent in te reo. So that was really cool. And we're from a beautiful place up north called Waimahana. And it's stunning. I went there for the first time a couple of years ago and it's literally just ocean. And I was like, yes, this is me. This makes sense. Yeah, it's home. It's whenua. And I was like, okay. That's a little bit about my culture. So mostly Pākehā. Over here, I'm known as the Pālangi teacher, which is all good. So I am, and I claim that hard. I'm like, yes, I don't know anything. Help me out. I love language, which is interesting because I struggle so hard to learn, to speak. And so before coming to Samoa, I learned a bit of Samoan. I was doing night classes, which was so cool. And I knew a bit, like I could count, I could introduce myself. And then I came here and it's just like stage fright. It's like, no, I don't want to use it. My mom's like, you've been here a year and a half now. Like, you should be able to speak. I'm like, no, I know less now. So that's a constant. I'm working on that as I get more comfortable. But yeah, basically I've been teaching this must be my 6th or 7th year. 5 years in, I just knew that God was calling me to Samoa. And I was kind of like, oh yeah, surely not like now. Surely, when I'm settled with kids, with a husband, all that. But no, I got on a plane. I landed here, started last year, February. And then a month later, we went into COVID. And so I had all my flights booked home and I haven't been home because, I had the class to teach. Yeah.
What a story, sis. Like, can talk about taking a leap of faith.
Yeah,
Do you
it's
know what I
exactly
mean?
what.
Like
Yeah.
I'm hearing your story and I'm like, wow, that's what you call taking a leap of faith. It's so interesting how you mention language because you would think, right? Like your mom said, you would think that you would pick up the language, but I imagine that everyone around you wants to learn English or they want
Yeah.
you to talk so they can listen to you.
Yeah.
What's that been like for you?
So I'm predominantly in, like, my school speaks English from year one, which is cool. And they're allowed, sorry, they get the opportunity. I think it's in year four, we introduce Samoan lessons. And so basically the kids are around me because I teach year eight. They speak fluent English by the time I have them, which is good. And they try to encourage me to speak Samoan.
Yeah.
And I try, but the kids are great. That's why I love being in a classroom. I'll try with them. We'll laugh. They will correct me 1,000 times. It's more when you're around other adults and they're a little bit more harsher. They don't realize. They're just like, no, you're saying it wrong. Or they pretend not to understand you when you're trying. And it's just that constant people you're not trying to help you out. So I struggle with it. And it's something that I have to change my mindset around, because I know people aren't being horrible, but when you're totally just not getting something over and over and over and people keep saying, nah, like, I don't understand you, and because there's so many people around you that do speak English here, so I
Yeah.
just kind of do the whole, oh, can you just translate for me?
Yeah.
um
Right.
so yeah, that's probably been one of my biggest challenges,
Mm,
is I want so badly to be able to speak Samoan, but I end up just shutting down, and I'm like, no,
mm.
can't do it. So yeah, it's a
Yeah.
daily or a weekly kind of work on. But I've always been a slow learner, so I know I'll get there. Just
Yeah.
won't be
Yeah.
as fast as everyone else expects me to be. Yeah.
Right. All in good time. And I was
Yeah.
I was wondering because obviously in the learning, everyday learning context there, but you're speaking English with colleagues and with the students. Are there opportunities for you to immerse yourself in the language outside of the school context? Or again, is it the fact that you really are coming across, a lot of people who are using English as the language of communication?
Yeah, I think because I'm in the city, I'm in Apia, most people do use English. So there's not really, there's no full immersion or anything like that. Sometimes in church, they'll start speaking in Samoan, even though I'm in the English service. And I like that because then I can kind of sit and listen to words. Um, and it's usually when you go out Gua and then people start speaking in Samoan, and I'm like, yes, okay, so I can just sit and listen and I can pick out words. But it doesn't really happen in my daily, every day to day life here. Yeah.
Um, I just want to kind of go back to just a bit from your introduction. Uh,
Yeah.
you've been teaching for about 6 years now. Um, what age group were you teaching in New Zealand? Like prior to coming to going to
Yeah.
Samoa, what age group were you teaching?
So I had year fives and sixes, and I loved that age group. I had them for 5 straight years. So I got that nailed, like you
Yeah,
start, then kind of learn how to work it out.
yeah,
And I was so in that comfort zone.
right.
And then, I moved here and now I teach year eights. And that's
Yeah,
like a whole new ball game. It's different curriculum. Yeah.
yeah. I was going to say, in terms of the curriculum, what? Yeah, you said it's a whole
Yeah.
new ball game. What is the curriculum like? I mean, how much did you? I don't know. Was there pre-learning? Did you have to, or did you arrive and then realize, okay, I have got a whole lot more that I need to learn here? Like,
Yeah.
what was that like for you? Was it like culture shock and teacher shock
Everything.
and everything shock?
Everything. It was good old me. Like, I always jump into an adventure, not really
Right.
thinking, hey, maybe I should do some study or figure out what I'm going into. And I did try to ask questions, but before I came, even back then, like, we didn't have Vodafone. Vodafone only came literally like after a month I got here, and so internet's so much better. But even before that, trying to message and just like a busy principal and stuff like that, so I couldn't really figure out much. And I landed on a Saturday and started on a Monday because I had a friend's wedding in home to stay for. So I literally was in the country a day and then got thrown into a classroom. And so I learned a lot in the first 4 weeks. And then we had a whole week for a cyclone that didn't even happen. So that helped me kind of like figure everything out. And then in week 7, we went into lockdown, which sounds terrible, but it was perfect timing because I could start to figure everything out. Because at our school, we cross between the New Zealand curriculum, which is great because I know that, and the Samoan curriculum. But the two areas I would say, like my strengths are English, social studies, health, PE, but science is massive over here, which it's not in New Zealand with primary school. It's more about being curious and really inquiring. But here it's like a full-on tested exam-based subject. And then maths. My kids who are year 8 are working at a New Zealand year 10 level, which I didn't learn in university. We only go up to year 8. So that's been a massive challenge. And I came over knowing that I wouldn't have to teach maths because I had a teacher doing it for me. But then he got fully qualified and he's a classroom teacher this year. So my principal was like, "You up for the challenge of maths teaching?" And I was like, no, don't do it to me. And so I use a lot of online resources, which she's absolutely fine with. I get heaps of support from the other teacher who's now a full classroom teacher. And the kids are great and they do after school tutorials, thankfully. And we're getting there. But as a teacher, I put so much pressure on myself. And I know they're learning because I have the results to show it, but I'm just not teaching where I would like to be teaching in terms of, knowledge and stuff. But we're getting there.
I follow your stories and I just think, man, I've just been so curious to hear, your journey from New Zealand to being in Samoa. And, I remember one time you put out a call for help in terms of getting resources. I think there were perhaps laptops or something. And I was wondering, because you did say that not long after you arrived, you went into lockdown. So how was learning going on? Like, was everyone still at school? Was it restricted, or how were you dropping off homework, or tell us, what was that like?
That was devastating, to be fair, because the year before they went through measles, which was heartbreaking in itself.
Right, 2019.
School finished early. So those kids had already had the biggest summer break ever. And then trying to finally get them back, and they were finally in routine. And then we went down into lockdown and we didn't know how long. We weren't on online learning. I started up a Facebook page and tried to promote it because everyone over here uses Facebook. It's like next level. It's like a newspaper. Like everyone uses it for their daily news. So it's like, the parents will get on board, and they didn't. I was like, okay, all right, like I can work with this. I had like 5 or 6 parents on there, so that was cool. And I'd post things for their kids. We printed out like I think it was a whole 5 to 6 weeks of lessons. And when I got back after lockdown, I think I had 7 kids out of like 25 do their work. So it didn't happen. The nation as a whole, the education sector tried to put like lessons on the TV, which was good, and it was all in Samoan. They actually contacted me because they wanted me to teach science on TV. And then I went in and talked to them, and they realized I couldn't speak Samoan, and they're like, "Oh no, thanks." But no. I was like, I was wondering, this is strange. So they were really trying their best at last minute to like put together things, but this system is just we're not up for online teaching. Like kids have their parents' cell phones. A lot of kids don't have laptops in their houses. And my kids are, I'd say, middle of the range for city kids. And my kids last year in particular, none of them had devices or things like that. This year, it's a little bit more accessible because of Vodafone coming in. Like that was a massive game changer. So it could be possible this year, but last year no one was ready for it at all. So not much learning.
I mean, I imagine that and I have seen you've had to probably get quite creative in terms of lesson planning and really gauging what resources that you have access to. What has that been like for you? Like coming from New Zealand, where you probably had a lot of access
Yeah.
to resources, and then coming and going, okay, now I really do need to put on my thinking cap and figure out, what can I just grab, and how can I put these lessons together? What's that been
Yeah.
like for you?
So it's been eye-opening. It's definitely been humbling, and it's made me far more grateful for what I did have in New Zealand. And I hate to say it, and it kills me now, but I was so ungrateful. I used to complain to your other school teachers in the staff room and stuff like that, and I wish I had that, and blah blah blah. And now I'm like, I had so much, and I did not utilize it enough. I'm like 50-50 with technology. I love it, but then I also think that kids are on it too much. But when you come here, they're on the screens a lot, like your cell phones, and some kids have tablets, but they don't know how to work an iPad. Not an iPad, a computer at all. So when that first day I walked into my classroom, so my classroom was not actually a classroom; it was a storage room for like your journals and things. But we had like over the school holidays, a lot of people in New Zealand had donated to the school. So all the donations went into my supposed classroom. And so I was literally put into this like resource room, which I'm still in now, and it is tiny. The upside about that is that I cannot have a full size class. Like you can't fit 30 year 8 students in there. So last year I had 27, and that was too many for the class. So this year I have
3 less. 3 less makes it better.
3 less.
Oh my goodness, cut it
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, but we still have classes in our school that have 40 to 45 kids.
Wow.
So I've literally got half of that. But I walked in and there was no whiteboard, which I was like, okay, that's fine. Like we use blackboards over here. And I was like, but where's the blackboard? I was like, what am I supposed to teach with? So for the first day, I literally ran down to the office, had to figure out where that was first, got paper, stuck it up on the wall with whatever I had. I unpacked some of my boxes that I got sent over, and I was literally teaching on paper. And then I went and talked to the principal, and I was like, hey, is there something I can write on, like a whiteboard maybe? And she's like, oh, yeah, we actually have one. So the next day I got a whiteboard, and I still have that now. And it's very rickety, but it's actually pretty cool. It slides.
Okay.
So right on
Sounds
a
good.
lot. Yeah. We got new desks this year because last year in the wet season, the condensation would drip off the kids' desks. So I talked to the principal again because a lot of teachers just don't actually talk or ask for anything. And so I just go on, I'm like, hey, is there any chance that we could get? And like 8 times out of 10, she's pretty good about it. And then the stuff that I know is like too hard, like we just don't have the money for it. That's when I go online. I'm like, does anyone have, does anyone want to donate, or does anyone have resources? So I've got heaps of like pens and pencils for the class that way. That's how I got 5 laptops, which was just incredible, especially because the week later my laptop broke. So then I had to use one of those. But you would be surprised how much you can do with paper. Like we have made some cool things with paper.
Yeah, paper, man. I mean, you just gotta make do, right? And it sounds like you're doing a pretty fantastic job of just making do with what you've got access to. But I also love that you're just brave enough to just be like, hey, you gotta have these conversations. If you're not gonna say anything, but it's cool that you're able to like have a chat with the boss and say, look, what are the chances of this happening? Because I mean, if you don't ask, you're not going to get it. And at the end of the day, it's for the kids learning, right? You're there to do a job, but most importantly, you're delivering the curriculum to the kids. And if there's nothing available to them, if you're just going to say nothing and just put up with the situation. So I love that you're such a go-getter for that. That's
well,
cool.
I never used to be, but you have to go over here. Like you have no choice. I remember ringing my mum like 6 months in and like not complaining, but just being like, oh, it's so hard. I need this. And she's like, well, have you asked? Have you reached out to someone? I was like, oh, no. She's like, you know a thing called email? Yeah, you can use that. And I was like, okay, thanks, Mom. And it worked. Like, I got free, like, a Maths Buddy resource, which is like an Australian company. They're great. I got the laptops. We're now doing swimming at one of the local resorts. Like, yeah, you just got to ask. And I've had no's a lot of times, and now I'm okay with that. I'm like, yeah, you can say no. Someone else will say yes.
Wow,
So,
swimming at one of the local resorts. I mean, that's cool.
That's awesome.
Have the kids, have they been, before going there for swimming, they probably hadn't even been given an opportunity to go to one of those resorts. So, so cool.
So I have a big background with water, like the picture, the surfboards. I want to learn to surf. I'm not a surfer, but I grew up as a swimmer, water polo player, and most of my family were all surf lifesavers. So water safety is just like a part of who we are. And so I was like, well, I may be struggling with maths and science, but like I can teach these guys how to swim, which is actually kind of vitally important when you are surrounded by water. And so I asked my class this year, I was like, how many of you can swim? And a lot of them put up their hands. And I was like, wait, what is your definition of swimming? They're like, oh, I can kind of keep my head above the water. Or I can kind of float. I'm like, can any of you do freestyle? Like 2 of them put their hands up and the rest of the class is like, what is that? I was like, okay, this is a good start. And so I reached out to like the local swimming pool. I did the formal Samoan letter. I went and handed it in and everything, and they just didn't respond. And so I was like, well, I'm not waiting for another term to go past. Like, I really want to do this. And my principal was like, yeah, if you can get someone to help us out with a pool, then absolutely. So I went to Talmasina, and because it's quite, obviously it's not busy there at the moment because of COVID, and they've got a perfect pool up the top. And I just I sent an email and I was like, is there any chance we can come and swim? And they replied, they're like, yeah. And I was like, okay, cool. What's the cost? And the manager was like, no cost. And I was like, no cost. I was like,
That's so cool.
Yeah. So the community really rallies together over here, and just like they definitely could have charged us. Like, they're not making much at the moment because of COVID. And when they said no cost, I was just like, I was blown away. So yeah, it was cool.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. And you should have seen the kids' faces, because we went Thursday last week for the first time, and some of them do come from privileged upbringings and they've been there before. But half my class, their faces were just like, whoa, oh, this is fancy. There's an outdoor shower and just like all these things. And I was like, yeah, it's nice. So it was cool to see that, just taking them on an experience they haven't had before. And then they were super grateful, real respectful, and just, we had a fun time. So it was good. Yeah.
This is, I love it. I'm loving hearing this part of your journey. If I was a fly on the wall in your makeshift classroom, I guess, if I was a fly on the wall, what would I be hearing? What noises would I be hearing? What conversations would I be hearing? Or maybe what jokes would I be hearing?
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, you wouldn't be a fly on the wall, because I'd pull that fly down and blow you up and say, can you help me? No, my classroom is really loud. I've always tried, even in New Zealand, I tried to be that calm, quiet, let's have a nice working space. And it doesn't work, because I encourage questions almost too much. I never thought I would say that at the start of my teaching journey. I was a child that never asked questions, so I very much overcompensate for that, especially over here. Kids aren't allowed to ask questions in classrooms with old school teachers. And so they kind of get to my classroom, they get to know me, and then all of a sudden they can't close their mouths. And so our classroom is very loud. You're allowed to ask questions most of the time. I will get the kids to stop and say, do you actually need to ask this question, or can you answer it for yourself, or can you ask someone else? Because quite often you'll get those kids that just want to talk, have a conversation, and you're like, no, you actually need to do your work. There's a lot of choice in my classroom, because they've had years of sit down, be quiet, you must do this. And by the time they get to year 8 as well, they have a mind, they have their own thoughts, and depending on their upbringing, if they have a very traditional Samoan upbringing, then they're not used to having conversations with adults or being able to express their thinking and their opinions. And in my class, they know that they're allowed to have a voice. They're allowed to talk about what they want. We're not formal in my classroom like most of the other classrooms. I get a lot of slack from some of the other Samoan teachers because they don't think I have a handle on my class. And I've had to learn to just let that judgment go. I'm like, okay, if you don't think I have a handle, that's fine. We're very much a school that is not allowed to use force. You're not allowed to use rulers or anything like that. But they have definitely been brought up with kind of that the behavioral management strategy of consequences and negative things, even shame, which is, it's a changing culture. Our principal is doing really well with our staff. We had PD in the holidays, which we don't really have over here, 2 full days of PD on positive behavioral strategies, which was really cool. And it was a really good refresher because when you're around different strategies, even myself, who's been brought up in New Zealand, still sometimes like I can be, I wouldn't say hard compared to other teachers, but you kind of start absorbing that. And so just reminding myself of, hey, like I need to work on this strategy again. I need to build those relationships. So I've always been a relationship-based teacher from the start. I'm a teacher that, especially in year 8, will model mistake after mistake and just continue trying. I posted about this the other day. I used to fake my mistakes in year 5 and 6 to teach them it's okay. Over here, there's no faking. They're genuine mistakes. I have some smart kids, but they're really cool that, oh, miss, you spelt that word wrong, or you said that English word incorrectly. This is how you say it. And we laugh. So yeah, my classroom is loud. There are certain times when you have to be quiet. Maths is very much, I do it from a problem-solving way because often I need to have a conversation about it with the students. And so it's everyone gets their say, everyone gets to put their strategy up on the board. So yeah, depending on the subject as well. If it's English, I'm great at that, so I can kind of rock and roll with that. But yeah, science and maths, it's a little bit more we all help each other out. And then, yeah, there's a lot of laughter. There's a lot of laughter, more than New Zealand, and I love that. And yeah, there's a lot of student input and student voice, which is good. Yeah,
that sounds fantastic. It sounds like you've created like a safe space.
Yeah.
That maybe for many of the kids, it's new. Safe space where they have a voice. Sounds like you're amplifying student voice, allowing them to make choices, and just to have an opinion in the classroom. How inspirational is that, sis? It sounds awesome. I was wondering about student motivation, right?
Yeah.
And how you deal with that, with students who perhaps, come in and it's just not happening, like how do you deal with student or perhaps lack of motivation, if any? um yeah, when you have
Yeah.
those days.
That's a good point. I struggled more with that in New Zealand. I think when you have a more privileged education system, which the kids in New Zealand do, especially because I was in a decile 5, so never a low decile school. Yeah, I struggled more with it in New Zealand. I was pleasantly surprised when I came here that I'd say 8 out of 10 kids are motivated for their education. One, because their parents pay for the school they come to, and it's not cheap. And 2, I just think there's better discipline over here. So they know that at home they have to do their homework. So homework's not an issue over here at all. It's almost, it sounds terrible as a teacher, I almost think they do too much homework. And where's the freedom? Where's like, let's go out and play, let's go out and really enjoy the sports that we do. But I have a few kids that I still struggle this year in particular. They're super bright, but if they're not interested in the topic, they're not going to give me anything, or what they give me, and I'm like, you could have done that 4 years ago. Where's my year 8 student? Which I don't say out loud to them. But the only way I can combat that is by giving them choice. Especially even, it sounds silly, but our classroom's so small. I tried to create a space where I can do, this is such a primary school teacher thing, but where I can have groups on the mat. And actually a lot of my boys love to work in that space. And so just giving them a choice of where they can sit. I don't always give them that choice because sometimes they get distracted. They're kids, we're humans. I get distracted too. So just, some days, yes, you can sit there. And other days, do you think you're actually going to get your work done there next to your best friend? And they're like, oh, yeah, no, maybe not. Or you show me 5 minutes of solid work and then, you can move down there. So, motivation for most of the kids, easy. All you have to mention is just, you're working hard for your future. And I always speak to them, though, a few times about this is I'm not using that. I don't want you to feel pressure when I say that. But just for them, for a lot of them, scholarships are, I don't know how to word this in a PC way, but scholarships are their way out or their way to a better education. So trying to explain that you actually need to start working now because high school is short. Like they finish high school. So in New Zealand, we go all the way to year 13. Here, they finish anywhere from a year 11 to year 12. Then they have like a foundation year in university, and that's where they get the scholarships. So just trying to set good study routines now, motivate them that way, helping them with that, with their homework after school. But also identifying the kids that have different gifts that aren't. I'm not saying that they can't go to university. I always tell them, if you want to go to university, you 100% can, even if you don't get a scholarship. There are other ways. But also identifying like, hey, you're incredible at playing guitar. Like you're really good at building things. So just showing them that there are different avenues. And now we have the internet, we have online, we can find other ways. Like you can start a business now. You're year 8, you're 12, you're 13. Like you don't have to wait. So just trying to open doors, plant seeds, because not many people do that over here. Like the only way is university at the moment. That's what their parents think. From what I understand, and again, I don't live in their households, but so trying to motivate them in different ways, like identifying their gifts, like you're awesome at sport, you're really good at, writing, you're really good at spoken word, like let's put that out there. Let's show other people what you can do. Yeah.
Absolutely. Before arriving in Samoa, did you have some preconceived ideas about the place and then only to arrive and be like, oops, I may have made a mistake there. Yep. List them, sis. List them. I mean, like I'm so curious.
Yeah. So my only understanding, so I had been twice before as a tourist. Very tourist the first time. I came with my cousin. We were here in school holidays. We had the list of all the places we wanted to go. I loved it. Everyone was super friendly. And then I came back a second time with my school principal for it was like a work conference, which was cool. Same thing. Everyone was super friendly, super helpful. And I knew the Samoan community at my school. Same thing, super friendly. Everyone was awesome. And then I came here, and everyone is super friendly to your face. And I don't mean to say this horribly, but in a workplace environment, everyone had me on this pedestal that I was so unaware of. I didn't realize I was going to come over and be put up like here. Like the principal is here, and then all the work colleagues put me here. I thought I was going to come in and be right at the bottom, like slide in and be like, hey, I'm going to teach my classroom. We're going to be awesome. And there was just this expectation that I did not realize that I was coming into. And also I think not even Samoa in general, like people are lovely and they're so friendly, but there's so much gossip. I just didn't.
There's gossip and then there's Facebook. Facebook, right? Facebook.
Exactly. And then even like faith-based, like I love God, I love church. And then I came to church and it was like, oh, who's that guy you came with? And I was like, excuse me? Why are people watching me on a Sunday in my place of worship where I'm praying? And like kids would come up to me, hey miss, who are you with? I'm like, excuse me, you're not in my classroom. We don't have a relationship. Who are you? Oh, my mum was asking. So like I always knew there was gossip, but it's like up here.
Next
and
level,
like,
next level, right?
yeah, it's like me stuff about me closed. Don't ask me this stuff.
Yeah, you're
So
just minding your own business, right? You're just doing
yeah,
you, and there's this
yeah,
there's Ellyse over there.
yeah. So that took me a while. I only returned back to church a month ago. So I was here. I was in church for like 4 weeks. Then lockdown happened, and then my home church at home had church online. So I got very
Nice.
comfortable with that, and no one was watching what I was doing. So that was cool. But yeah, like a month ago, I was like, nah, sis, you got to get in church. So I'm finally back in church. But the literally the moment I walked through the door, that next Monday in class, 3 kids, hey miss, we saw you at church on the weekend. I'm like, okay, just being friendly, it's all right. But yeah, it's that lack of privacy. Like I get no privacy anymore. And yeah, being put on a pedestal, and also like because I'm a teacher, I'm put on a pedestal in terms of like being in the community as well. So it's like, it sounds terrible. This is such a Palangi issue, and it's not an issue. It's a non-issue. But like, I can't wear my bikini anymore because we've got it covered. And I remember a teacher saying, "Oh, I saw you. I saw this white girl on the beach, and you know her bottoms weren't on properly, and she's showing her tummy. It was you, right?" I was like, "What color was it?" She's like, "Blonde hair." I'm like, "This is brown. That was not me." I don't do that. I understand, like I'm respectful, but I'm such a beach person. I've always been totally confident in my body.
Right.
And so to have to wear like full covered, like my tummy has never been this white in my life. Like just yeah. It's weird things like that, which no one would think of. But yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's so a Palangi thing, but you
Yeah,
already
it is.
said that. So
Yeah.
But
100%.
that's so
Yeah.
funny. Wow. So I guess outside of teaching, just to move to outside of teaching, how do you have opportunities to to visit places, to see the island, or are you just bogged down with work a lot? Like I
Yeah.
imagine you've got a lot on your plate.
Yeah, that's a good question. I've always been, except for my first 2 years of teaching, like I 100% swallowed myself alive in that because you just kind of need to. But I've always been really good at work is work and home is home. I struggle more over here because my classroom is so hot. I used to stay after school in New Zealand till about 5:30 and get everything done. But here, like it's so sticky and gross. I just want to go home and shower. So for the first year over here, I was lucky because I wasn't teaching maths, so I had a free period. Clearly don't speak Samoan, so I couldn't teach the Samoan class. And then we had COVID, so I had heaps of free time. I got to do a lot of exploring. It's changed lots this year. So I teach maths, and my Samoan class, that free period, I now have to teach year 7 science. So I don't get any free breaks. We now have 2 duties a week, and duties not just lunchtime, it's before school, lunchtime, second break, after school. So that's 2 complete days with absolutely no break in your day at all whatsoever. But because I want to get out and see the island more and do more, I've actually picked up a second job in the afternoon. So I get to work at 7:40 in the morning after the gym, and the bell at the end of the day goes at 1:45. I leave school at 2:15, get to my other job, which is an after school care, which I've started, I think 2 months ago now. I absolutely love it because there's heaps of little kids, and I really remembered why. Like, it helps you remember the joys of teaching because I don't have to plan anything. I just get to come in and have fun with the kids. And I finished that at 5:30. So usually I get home and I'm done. I'm like, no, I don't want to do any more work. So when I get to school in the morning, I'll use that time to set up my day. And Saturday morning, I'll get up early because I get up early anyways for the gym. So my body's awake, and I'll spend 3 to 4 hours getting all my planning done then so that I can have a weekend and we'll go out and explore. I was really lucky. My partner got me a Talmasina card for Christmas at the end of last year. So, because I was complaining that I live on a tropical island and I never get to go to the beach.
Right.
So that resort has a beach and it's close to where we live. Last weekend, because Father's Day, long weekend, Samoa does long weekends well, I must say. We have lots of those. So I went to a beach valley, which was cool. So yeah, I've seen heaps of the islands. Definitely want to see more. Money quite often stops me because you have to pay for beaches here and things like that. Which in New Zealand you don't pay to go to the beach. Yeah, so definitely trying to see more. I want to get to Savai'i. I've been there once before, and Savai'i's beautiful. But yeah, trying to figure out timing and financial. Can I swing it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring up financial because I remember seeing on your story one time about food shopping. So I wanted to ask,
Yeah.
or maybe not one time, maybe a few times actually.
Yeah, a lot. I complain about it a lot.
I wanted to ask about the cost of living. Obviously, families, you can live off the land and
Yeah.
plantation and whatnot. But where you are and in terms of groceries and access, I mean, how's it going?
Yeah.
Is it going?
So,
I should ask.
I term myself as like a missionary expat, if that makes sense. So I really feel like God called me here, and that's cool. But I'm still like an expat. People look at me and they assume balangi money, which now I understand that connection and I get that. Had such a privileged upbringing. That's how I got here. Like, I have a car. A lot of people don't have cars here. I can pay for my petrol. I have enough food. But it's just, when you've come from a privileged upbringing and then you're not making as much money as you used to, I didn't realize that transaction or that change was going to be so challenging. At home, I always, well, not always, I try my best to eat super healthy. And unfortunately, I don't understand why, but healthy food or healthy snacks are super expensive. And you don't really have healthy snacks here, which is fine. But even like your fruits and vegetables that are imported, or your apples and your oranges, unless you buy in bulk, they're really, really expensive. A nice lettuce is super expensive. But there's ways around it, but it's just, you have to eat everything in season. And there's like only so many beans and bok choy that I can eat.
And pasta, right? And pasta.
Pasta's 3 tala. I'll have that like 4 times a week. Before I came here, I was gluten free and dairy free. I am not those things anymore. It's way too expensive. I rang my stepmom, was like, can you send me over some almonds because I can't afford them? So yeah, in terms of cost of living, because I don't have family land here, I have to rent. And rent, it's not super expensive if you're earning a New Zealand or Australian wage, which a lot of the expats are. But because I'm earning in Tala, it's pretty much without my second job, I can cover rent, I can cover power, like cash power, I can cover the water, I can cover some food and petrol. And that pretty much takes up my entire pay. So for last year, that was fine because I had savings. I'm not financially terrible, but I'm also not financially savvy. So I was like, oh yeah, I'll be fine. I was still thinking I'd go home for school holidays. I can get a job, da da da. No, that didn't happen. And so I kind of got to like March this year, and I sat down with God and I had a prayer, and I was like, look, if there's a second job that I can do that's not going to take me away from my first job, because that's why you called me here, can you just open a door? And literally the next week, one of my friends I met here, she's like, oh, I'm starting this after school care. Like, we'd love to have a teacher on board. Would you be interested? I was like, sign me up. So there's a lot of like side hustles in the holidays. I sell my clothes online because females love to shop in any country. So that's great. And just, I was doing tutoring last year, but that was a little bit challenging after teaching all day and then having to be prepped and things like that. So the after school care is much easier. I just walk in and do what I want. But yeah, I wouldn't say I could be better with my money, but because I never had to be super strict, I guess I never learnt to be super strict. So I really need to stop eating so much snacks, and then I can probably do more activities. The snacks are taking away learning how to surf.
I was going to ask, and is there a space for you where you live where you can grow your own fruit and veggies, or do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
have your own herb garden or something, or am I just imagining?
No, you're absolutely right. My first house I lived in had a beautiful garden. The neighbor literally came and weeded it for me and like tried to show me how to grow vegetables, which was so sweet. And I killed everything.
Oh my!
I'm very white in gardening. It just, if I had more time, no, I can't even say if I had more time. We were in lockdown for like 2 months and everything died in the sun. We planted the wrong things. We had my partner's mum on the phone ringing, being like, no, you need to plant this. The moon's at like full volume or something. No, I mean, I'm good with herbs. I'm great with herbs, and I often keep herbs in the kitchen. In Aotearoa, I used to have like a sack of soil in my backyard, and I could grow like lettuce and stuff like that, and tomatoes. I tried to grow tomatoes here, and they fried in the sun. So I say I've half-assed it. If I really sat down and tried, I could definitely do it, and I could save some money. But when you're a school teacher, you're exhausted, and your weekend is your weekend, and I don't want to try and keep a garden alive anymore.
You've like, I've had enough. I'm over it.
Yeah. So it's definitely doable. It's definitely doable. It's not for me. Not at the moment. It's a dream though. I'd love to be that person that has the garden. You know, I tried that. Yeah.
Do you Samoan food? Love Samoan food. What are you? I mean, you know, back home in New Zealand, there's this chop suey and everyone eats corned beef and taro. But man, you're on the island. I'm so jealous. Tell me, what do you love to eat?
It's so good. It's everywhere and it's super cheap, which I love. So whenever like I'm tight on money, I can literally stop on the side of the road and get anything. I'm a real basic eater, but I really like ulu. I like the breadfruit. Which just sounds, everyone's like, why would you eat breadfruit? It's so dry. But I love it. And I chop it up and then I put oil and I make it into like chips in the oven. So I just put my own.
So extra.
So I love that. What else do I like? I love coco Samoa. That's so good. Sometimes, 9 times out of 10, it has way too much sugar in it. So my partner Nick will make it at home, and I just go, "Can you just like half the sugar?" I don't need all that sugar.
Come on, you should know. I'm sure everyone's told you cannot drink coco Samoa. Like you have to. It just has to have. You know, when we have family gatherings, when we have family gatherings, they will ask, "Who made this?" If there's not enough sugar, they're gonna call you out, sis. You just gotta learn. You have to. It's just one of those drinks where it has to be sweet. Come on.
That's why we make it at home when no one else can judge the way I drink it. If I'm out, I will 100% drink it. I'm quite often called rude. Like I was called rude in the staff room today because I said no to a pancake roll.
Right.
She's like, but I just brought it. How can you not want it? That's rude. I'm like, I know, but I just ate a pie for breakfast. That's not even like acceptable for me. She's like, so eat my pancake. And I'm like, oh. So I've learned to very much be like, no, I'm full. I don't need food. But for the first 6 months, honestly, the amount of food people gave me got me to try. I put on so much weight. But it's right. Everything's incredible. I brought for the staff last week, what's it called? The Samoan pancake, the kiki, but panikiki, the round balls.
Yeah, panikeke.
So I brought those for the staff. So I was a staff favorite last Friday.
Yum. I'm so jealous.
And then I tried, I'm so sorry, I'm terrible with the names, but I tried for the first time the other day. It was like a dessert, and it was taro and like a caramel.
Aussie, which is
Yes,
carrot cut up.
Yeah,
And
and I actually really enjoyed that, which I was surprised. I didn't think I was gonna like it, and I did. It was good.
I was
so yeah,
jealous.
I'll try. Yeah, I try anything, and quite often I'll like it. It's just whether or not my tummy agrees with it.
Right.
I have a very, very Western tummy.
Right.
And it will just be like, no, you can't eat any more of that. I'm like, I can eat more of that, but I'll have to run to the toilet a few times.
Oh man, that is hilarious. Oh, you're funny. So I guess, now a year and a half since you've been there.
Yeah.
You've shared a lot of really great things, but highlights. Surely there are some things that kind of really stick out in your mind. Year and a half into this leap of faith, this new job. What have been some highlights?
The kids, for one, like as a school teacher, for most school teachers, it's always the kids. It's what brings you back. You have your good days and your bad days, but like especially my class this year, because obviously last year with COVID that was a little bit tricky, but my class this year, they're so funny, they're super entertaining, but just seeing their growth has been really rewarding this year. So that's definitely a highlight. The fact that I can do whatever I want to my little box classroom, so I could paint it. I've got the kids, they drew like angel wings on the wall. Like my classroom is some teacher's worst nightmare, and old me teacher worst nightmare, because it is like a pig's breakfast. But it is ours, and we've owned it, and each child can be like, yeah, I did that, or yeah, this student drew that on the wall for us. So in terms of teaching, the kids are a massive highlight. And then personally, I came over in February last year, and literally 2 weeks into it, I met my now boyfriend. And like I had been single for 27 years, like no one at all. So it's like that has been a massive blessing in itself. Because we went into lockdown, and he was like the only person I knew on the island. So getting to know him, still haven't met his mum because she lives in New Zealand. He hasn't met my mum, but just having someone to hang out with all the time, to share the experience with, and someone who can teach me some Samoan. He was raised in Australia and New Zealand though, so he doesn't think his Samoan's good, but he can converse. So personally, just finding your person was massive highlight, which I had to move countries to find. Thank you, God.
Well, there you go, another blessing. Recently they had the elections and all that going on. Were you like following that? I mean, were you like in the thick of it all, or?
I love politics at the best of times. Like, don't know terminology, anything like that, but I know I know my values. I know what I vote for. Like, when we had our own politics, I made sure I was at the embassy getting my vote in, things like that. I come from a strong family that if you vote, you get to have a say. You can complain for the next 3-4 years if you want, but you must vote. So watching it over here, and the fact that it just oddly tied into our social studies at the same time, meant that I could actually freely talk about it in the classroom with year 8s who have an opinion. It was so cool. We never clearly said out loud who we were voting for or who our parents were voting for, just to be respectful. But it was was really interesting and entertaining as someone that doesn't get a vote to watch. And I really am just so proud of how the nation handled it, because I could see the way that like New Zealand was portraying it in the media over there, but over here it was just so peaceful. From what I could gather, everyone was really just like, we'll just wait, and we'll just wait, and we'll just wait, and we'll wait, and we'll wait until we finally get an outcome. Because I feel like if that had happened in any other country, which it probably wouldn't have because the law is written correctly, it would have blown up. Like people would have been rioting and whatnot. But over here, everyone was just super respectful. And I think that comes down to Samoan culture and just respecting your elders as well. Because obviously Tulipa was in Parliament for so long. He is an elder. And just, going through the courts, waiting for the systems to take place. And just, I think I think by the end of it, everyone knew that things were changing. People still haven't accepted that over here. There's still protests, but again, from what I can see, they're super peaceful. Lots of cars, lines of cars up roads and things like that. But it was interesting learning. Because of what happened, I learned so much more about the Constitution and like the finer details. So I really love talking to the kids about the fact that you have to have a percentage of women in Parliament, which I think is really powerful over here because it's such a biblical nation, and sometimes the Bible can be, I guess, understood from some perspectives as the man always leads.
Right.
And I do know that some churches are still struggling with the fact that we have a female PM. But I think it just brings so much hope to the females of this nation in particular, that actually you can get that top position and you can be respected and you can make change. And just even in the last couple of weeks, like hearing the things she wants to do, the fact that we actually might have a bubble with New Zealand to travel was, for me, I was like, yes, such a win. And there was mention, I don't know how true it is, because again, information over here is not always accurate, but the fact that apparently all the ministers used to have these big fancy cars and she's taking those away from them because she wants to save money. I'm just like, yes, initiative. So it was super interesting to watch. And honestly, I'm such someone that always sits in the middle, and sometimes I would genuinely be like, oh no, I understand where he's going with this. And then I'd be, oh no, nope, we're back over here now. So I would swing back and forth, and then I'd have what my kids are saying, which is really what their parents are saying. But it was just super interesting. I can understand that it was a challenging time for a lot of people here, because just not the unknown of what was going to happen. But I think at the end of the day, everyone did just patiently wait and just trusted on the outcome, which was cool. Yeah.
Do you see yourself? I mean, I hope the bubble opens up soon so you can visit family and connect with family. I mean, that's super important. Do you see yourself living in Samoa for a bit longer? Like, where do you see yourself in like 5 years, like in terms of education and?
Yeah. So I definitely. I feel like I will be here longer. I never, especially living over here, you can never really fully, sounds terrible, I can never fully commit to being like, I'm going to be here for the next 5 years. And that is solely for like financial reasons. It's really, really hard to get ahead over here. And like, I'm 29 next year. I definitely want to start thinking about family and things like that. But if I'm to marry a Samoan, I don't want to just take my kids to New Zealand and not show them what is theirs, So I think we would both like to raise kids here eventually. So I think I will always be here in New Zealand. Like I'll always jump back and forth. But I can just see there's such a need over here for education. And I just want to encourage more Samoan trained teachers to come over. Like, yes, I'm here and I do feel called by God, but I really feel if, again, it's for them and for their family, but come back, even do 2 years over here. Do 2 years, share your knowledge, and then you can go back and, help because I understand that a lot of people stay in New Zealand financially to help families over here too. and I respect that. But man, I just think there's such a need for Samoan teachers who've had training overseas to come over here and help the teachers here, train them over here. Even if you come for a holiday, buddy up with a teacher over here and just give them some knowledge, give them some new PD. Because yeah, once teachers do university here, I mean, I can't speak for all schools, but I just feel like there's such a big opening for people to come and help, so that we can then help ourselves over here. Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense, sis. Makes a lot of sense. What do you want? What do you want the world, people who don't know about this beautiful island country of Samoa? What do you want people to know about Samoa?
I think they need to come and see it. I think you can't understand it until you come here and see it. Because there's only so much swiping you can see. You can't get the true essence unless you come here and you meet the people. Because it really is such a beautiful culture. It's so relaxed, but then at the same time, there's so much laughter, there's so much hype, there's so much going on. But I just really think this country in general has such a good balance between like a work life and family life, like family and faith, which I don't think you always get in Western cultures. Work comes above sometimes. And I just think, yeah, this nation is so friendly, so friendly. And yeah, but people have to come and see it. Once borders open, like, yeah.
You've heard it, everyone. Once borders open, we're going to stay with Ellyse. We're going to
bring me chocolate.
Take some almonds, please. Take some almonds.
Almonds and chocolate. You can come stay with me. Everyone's welcome at my home.
So I'm very wary of time. I'm aware that it's getting late there, and again, I'm pushing into your beauty sleep, sis. Do you have any book recommendations, or just a book, or a favorite childhood book that you can share, off the top of your head, if you have to?
Yeah. My favorite childhood book. So I don't know the author, but it was called I, Coriander. Okay. My auntie gave it to me when I was 12. I wasn't a reader at all whatsoever. Struggled with reading. That was the first book that I started to read, and it was a cross between fantasy and English history. So I loved that, and it had like princesses and kings and queens, that kind of stuff. And then a book I'm reading at the moment, actually, where is it? Sorry, terrible angle. Is this one here. It's called Rise of the Mystics. It's the second book. I had to get my mum to send it over. She sent me the first, and then it just like ends, and you need the second book. And she hadn't sent it, so I got on the phone. It's kind of, again, it's fiction. I love fiction, but it's also like a faith fiction, if that makes any sense. So if you're kind of into like God and faith and things like this is a cool book. Yeah.
Oh, thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing those two books. I'll make sure we put the pictures up so everyone knows where they can find it. Before we wrap up, Ellyse, sis, I'm so like blessed to have connected with you, on Instagram, and I'm loving following your journey there. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing not just your knowledge as an educator, bless your heart, but just your journey, just this, that leap of faith and your journey from New Zealand to Samoa. I appreciate you coming on the show. I will continue to follow you and just see how you're progressing. If you ever need anything, you know where I am. Reach out and I'll see how I can help you as a teacher myself. So we got you. Just let us know. But I'll just hand it over to you, sis. Just some final words of encouragement, some words of wisdom from Ellyse all the way in Samoa. That's what's up. Take it away, sis.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. In terms of words of wisdom, I would say that if I can do it, someone that is not from this culture, anyone can do it, and it doesn't have to be coming to Samoa to teach over here. I just think take that leap of faith, do it. I was so scared. I got on the plane and I bawled my eyes out. I was like, what am I doing? No, but you just put one foot in front of the other and you do it. Don't question it. question it afterwards, it will all make sense. So yeah.
Mic drop. Thank you, sis. That
Thank
sounds
you.